my father was playing in the World Senior Chess Championship, which is the world championship for seniors. My dad is 75 years old, but he is a grandmaster and he's been Spanish champion many, many times. He was an extremely strong player and still is, but of course at this age you don't play as well as you did at your very peak. He peaked over 2,500 in rating back in the day, which was a lot more difficult than what it is today because, well, yeah, ratings changed throughout the years. But in this video, I'm going to show you a game that he played in round 10 of the FIDE Senior World Chess Championship, where he beat a 2,300 rated player in 32 moves. He played with 97% accuracy. It was a stunning game, and the attack was beautiful, and the end of this game was just so beautiful that I wanted to make my own video to show this to you so that you can see. And I think for me, the most inspiring thing about my dad is that he doesn't care that he plays worse chess today than he did back in the day. He loves chess so much that he's never gonna stop playing chess because of the happiness that chess gives him. So I don't think you should ever quit if you love something, no matter what happens, no matter if you get older. Anyways, this is how my dad won in 32 moves. He was playing against Daniel Elguezabal Varela, rated 2,300, a FIDE master. And as you can see, my dad, he's gone down quite a bit in rating. So you can see that he actually had lower rating. But I'm sure a lot more experience. So anyways, my dad won d4, which is the opening that my whole family plays. d5 was played. He went knight f3, knight f6, and now he went c4. So he did this kind of a little bit slower maneuver, first bringing out the knight and then going c4. Anyway, c6, e3, and now the opponent went out with the bishop to f5 very early on. This is all really standard stuff. I mean, black is just developing, black is keeping everything nice and safe, but now my dad decided to play this move, knight bd2. Typically what happens when this bishop goes to f5 is that now the pawn on b7 is not defended anymore. So now there's sometimes ideas of bringing out the queen so that you can start attacking this pawn. But my dad began with developing the knight. Now the opponent went h6, a very slow move, and my dad played queen b3, threatening this pawn on b7. So now the queen is out. This is all, you know, very, very natural. My dad would probably be pretty happy if black took here, because then he'd get his pieces out a bit better. Black went queen b6 to defend the pawn, and now my dad simply played knight e5. Typically, you don't really want to take here, because if you take here, black will take back with the pawn, and then this rook will get very active on this file, and the h2 pawn will constantly be looked at. So typically, this is not something that black wants to do. So instead, my dad simply activated his knight, and now he's putting a bit of pressure on f7. It's a little bit difficult to get this knight out with the knight on d2. He can also further defend this knight if he wants to. So the opponent went e6 to be able to get the bishop out, and my dad simply developed his bishop. This is another idea of knight e5, that my dad wanted to get rid of this bishop that black has. That's quite an annoying one. And now he's defending it with the knight, because otherwise he would just be losing the bishop, because black would be able to take here first and then take the bishop. So now the opponent took on b3, which I'm sure my dad was very happy about, because he gets to take with the pawn. Now white is doing the same thing as black could do. He is the one that is activating the rook and making this a7 pawn a bit of maybe an issue later on. So typically we'll see black playing a6 or something like this, so that this pawn is protected and the rook is not stuck here defending the pawn. Now the bishops were traded, and black went knight a6, which maybe looks like a bit of a strange move, but it has a similar idea to what I said before, which is to block this pawn from hanging and also potentially going to one of these squares. So my dad actually played rook a4 to prevent the knight from going to b4, because my dad wanted to keep this knight. And so, yeah, it could become an annoying knight over there, because yeah, after the trades, bishop takes, this bishop could also become a bit annoying. I don't know. My dad didn't want to allow that. So he played rook a4. b5 obviously can never be played because the knight is hanging. So This is quite nice. So the opponent, sorry, went knight d7 to kick away the rook with knight b6. So as you can see, the game is very slow, but in 21 moves, black is going to lose. It doesn't look like, I mean, the queens are off the board. It doesn't look like there's any attack. It looks like the most solid position ever. It looks as if it's going to go to a 40 move endgame, but it is not. So now my dad decided to start kind of closing down the position. He played the move c5. Why did he go c5? He played this move because he wanted to prevent this knight from going here. And now he's also blocking this bishop from going here. And this is typically a move that just kind of pushes black's pieces back. But there is a drawback with this move, which is that now the move e5 comes with a lot more force, because now my dad doesn't want to take this e5 pawn, because then the pawn on c5 is going to be hanging. And as you can see, black's pieces then get a lot more active here on c5, and he just gets this double pawn. So my dad played b4. This is also very nice, defending now this pawn. Now my dad is threatening to take this pawn. And here I think that a move such as e4 feels a little bit scary for white, because then black gets quite a bit of space as well. The knight would have to move probably to f4, etc. But instead, black decided to take on d4, which I think is very nice and comfortable for my dad, because now this pawn was taken. Now there's not going to be this pressure. My dad can simply take back, and he gets to keep his pieces on really good squares. So now, after knight c7, my dad simply castled. So now, f6. My dad went knight b3. He wanted to move the knight around. And after g5, black is trying to get some space on the king side. But my dad is going to continue this plan. He's going to play now f4. He's going to try to take advantage of the fact that black hasn't castled yet, and that now he's ready to get his pieces really active and maybe play a bit against the king. Black played bishop e7 because they want to develop their final piece, but now my dad has a very nice position because he has a lot more space, and it's not like he is much better or anything like that, but I think it's more comfortable for him to play, even though there's right now nothing crazy. So now my dad needs to make a choice. Will he take here, or will he try to close down the position? He decides to play the move f5, where the point is that after f5, this bishop is really bad. As you can see, all of these pawns are now blocked, and it becomes impossible for this bishop to activate itself. So this move kind of closes down the position a bit, but he's playing against black's really bad bishop. And also the king, and my dad has good places to go to, you know? Perhaps he can go knight a5 and put pressure on this pawn. There's definitely here a few things he can take advantage of. So the opponent went knight b5 to try to activate his knight, and my dad went rook e1, making it difficult for the king to castle, because then the bishop is hanging. So rook h7 was played to defend the bishop, and now my dad went bishop e3, simply defending this pawn and making sure that he can now move his knight if he wants to. So the opponent went long castles to get the king into safety, but now this pawn is a little bit weak. Even though, of course, he can't take it now because the knight is defending. But now the knight is stuck there defending. And as you can see, this king, if it goes to b8, okay, and a bishop over here, bishop f2, okay. There could be some kind of checkmate ideas. Okay, so my dad went bishop f2 here for that plan of trying to activate this bishop at some point through g3 perhaps. The opponent went rook f8 to try to activate the rook. Where exactly is this rook going? It's a great question, but not just to activate the rook, but also to free this square for the bishop. So perhaps he can go bishop d8 and bishop c7, maybe, to try to activate the bishop. So my dad went bishop g3 immediately, and the rook went to f7 to keep everything more protected. Now my dad, he was rerouting the pieces, rook a1. It doesn't look like the game is going to end in 9 moves whatsoever, but it is. So the bishop went to d8. My dad went bishop d6. Now the plan is that if black would take here to try to attack the pawn, well, just to get rid of the bishop, then we can take the knight, or then my dad can take that knight, and the a7 pawn becomes very weak. And this would actually be a really bad position for black, because after the king goes here to defend the pawn, there's this move rook e8 threatening the bishop, and if the king goes back, well, then we take the pawn on a7. And this is actually now a pretty much lost position for black. Black can go rook f8 to try to trade the rooks, but then we can just trade and place a amazing other piece on e1 to try to go rook over here. And if the king starts pushing up, well, we can go rook e8 anyways, and the knight is under threat. And if the knight tries to move to get itself into a better position, he can go knight c5, and now a piece is coming up to e6. And this rook is just completely off the game, and the pawn is completely taking away the squares for the king to escape to. So this would be a very good position. So after bishop d6, black cannot take this bishop. So instead, he played bishop e7 to try to trade the bishops. Now my dad went back to g3, the bishop went back, and my dad did not want to go back and forth. Instead, he played the move rook e6, activating the rook. So now the opponent went knight f8 to kick away the rook, but this was actually a mistake. This was the first mistake that the opponent did. At least the first kind of big mistake in that way. Why is this a mistake? Because he's now allowing my dad to play rook e8, a very similar idea to before. And now my dad's attack is starting. There's nothing crazy yet, but there's ideas of my dad to play bishop d6, which is what we were talking about before. And if the king goes to d7 to attack the rook, which is what the opponent did, my dad can activate his next piece, rook e1. Now black's pieces are really bad. This knight has no square it can go to. Absolutely no square. It's completely limited by this pawn. This bishop is really bad. And yeah, black's pieces are just really bad. Like, these two rooks are just funny. Like, they're not doing anything. They have no purpose. So now black wanted to play knight c7 to threaten the rook. But in this moment, he missed that there is this beautiful idea right now, which is that after takes, of course, his idea was just that he will take back. There is this beautiful move, which is b5, and the position is just lost now. That's how fast this goes. The idea of b5 is that when black takes on b5, if he does so, and if not, let me just show, like, if I don't even know what the opponent is going to do. If the opponent just wants something like rook over here, then the idea is to go knight b4 actually. And now there's just so much pressure on this pawn. Let's say that black just goes back and forth just to show you. The idea would be that after takes and takes, black can go for this move, knight a6. And now black's pieces are becoming really bad. Let's say that black continues just going back and forth just to see what happens. The point is that here you can just go takes, go rook a8. Now this pawn is under a lot of threat. And if you go something like king b7, yeah, you even have this idea of knight a5 check, where if takes, there's a checkmate. So the point is just that the king is very unsafe. And if the king goes to a6, yeah, this is stunning. But there is this beautiful move, knight c4, where the point is that if takes, it's going to be a checkmate in 3 after rook a1, and then checkmate. And if the king goes over here instead, there's going to be rook b8 check, and after rook b7 it's checkmate. So this is just to show how insanely like the tactics are here. But this move b5 is just so strong because now all of white's pieces are coming into the attack and black has no defense. But in this position, actually, black made a mistake. Instead, after b5, instead of, you know, just doing a random move, black took on b5, and it is now just completely lost after knight b4. This was the idea. The pawn on d5 is hanging. This is move 31. And after black went for the move a5 to attack the knight, my dad went c6. And this is now going to be a forced checkmate in 3. There's nothing that black can do. And here the opponent resigned on move 32. So a position that was seemingly completely fine turned in the last 5-6 moves into a complete disaster for black. Not by doing any move that immediately looked like a blunder, but by making mistakes that just... By not seeing that white's attack was as strong as it was. And why is this going to be a checkmate? Because after b takes c6, now there is knight c5 check. So you're allowing this square to be available for the knight. You're keeping the square available for the knight. So after takes, there's this check. And now after king d6, there is rook e6. And after takes and takes, it's checkmate. There's nothing to do. It's forced. So this is how my dad won his game number 10 in 32 moves against a strong 2300 rated player who just didn't see this attack. And my dad, he's an aggressive chess player. He loves playing attacking games. He was once called the Spanish Tell because of how tactical his games were. So when my dad wasn't his favorite kind of play style, there was nothing that was going to stop him. I hope you enjoyed this little game review video. It's a little bit different from what I typically do, but I love showing you games. And give it a like if you liked it. And let me know what you thought about the game. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!